Sarah from Heart Over Hearts, and I'm here with my week of reading wrap-up. This is where I talk about the books that I read, what I'm currently reading, and potentially could read next week based on my mood. Had a very good week. I'm really happy with kind of just doing a plunge straight into Cloak and Dagger Mystery, which is this fantastic season where in December you read mysteries, and I'll put a link to the announcement. There's all these prompts. I'm going to see how I can fit them all in with the prompts, kind of maybe next week. But for right now, I'm just diving into mysteries because I love this. I love the genre. I always have fun with it, and so there you go. But let's get into it. Let me tell you what I read this week. So the first thing that I read was Mortal Arts by Annalee Huber. This is the second in the Lady Darby series. This is Victorian. Lady Darby is a really great character. She is an artist. She has a scandalous past that is not a scandal that wasn't her choice, that was foisted on her by a bad marriage to a bad man. And she knows a lot about the human body and anatomy because her husband, who is now dead, was a surgeon. And he wanted to elevate and write a book about human anatomy. And so he married her because of her amazing artistic ability as a means of forcing her to do the drawings, and he could take credit for them, of the cadavers that he would take and the autopsies, so that he could explain in a book and basically rise in the ranks of his profession. She was forced to go along with this, and he was a very abusive and difficult man. He died, and everything came out what he had done, and she ended up being really ridiculed and bearing the brunt of people's anger about mutilating the dead. It all rested on her shoulders because he wasn't there to blame. And no one believed that she was forced to do it. So she has gone into isolation with her sister in Edinburgh and her sister's family. So that was kind of like the first book where there was a mystery and she had to solve it. And because she knows so much about anatomy and because she's very smart, she was able to help solve the case. In this case, she is with her sister and family, and they had to leave Edinburgh to come to London because their sister's pregnant, and it's a difficult pregnancy, so they need some medical help. And the person that the people that they need to interact with are in London, not in Edinburgh. While they're in London, they stay with friends of the family, and turns out that there is a secret happening in this house that puts everyone on edge. Her friend Michael he has his fiance and his fiance's mother there, and they're going to celebrate their upcoming nuptials that they're planning. He has in very, very short amount of time realized that his father, who died recently, had actually taken his older brother Will and put him in an insane asylum. And he had done that because he wanted to promote his younger son, Matthew. He wanted to promote him to be the head of the family, because Will was an artist, and Will was kind of challenging and dealing with some emotional things. So what has happened is that Matthew has found out where his brother, he thought his brother was dead. His father faked his brother's death. I know it sounds very convoluted. It comes across very easily in the book, though. He found out the institution that was keeping his brother in horrifying conditions and has rescued his brother, and his brother is being kept in the home, to the outrage of everyone there, because his brother has really been traumatized by his time there, but also traumatized by the war. So this is a really interesting story and case about what the conditions in Victorian era were for people who had PTSD, and and obviously they didn't understand PTSD at the time. And the connection in this book between our main character, Lady Darby, and and Will, the patient, the escaped patient, the released patient, is that he was her art teacher, her very first art teacher. And so she can see through, he's nonverbal, he's not talking very much, but he's drawing, and the drawings are very horrific and they're very difficult to look at. And so she wants to understand him and she wants to help him. Some things start to happen in around the estate and in the village that make people think that it has to be a madman. And so of course, Will is being blamed. And she needs to help, to not only wants to help Will get better and get back to a state where mentally he's more able to be in society, but she also wants to make sure that people know that he didn't do these things. And so it becomes this very interesting mystery that she tries to solve with Sebastian Gage, who is also a family friend in this circle, who helped her solve the previous mystery, and is also a potential romantic interest. A lot going on, but very craftily handled, and I really like this series, so I'll be continuing on with it. If you like really smart women characters, some artistic elements and some science in the mix, this could be a compelling piece for you. Oh, and historical fiction. Let's go to the second one. This was a miss for me, and it's such a bummer because it started so strong. It had so many elements that I love, but these elements just were, I felt like I was missing something. I felt like pages were missing, or I was questioning, did I skip over something? But no, it wasn't me. It was some huge holes in this plot. This is The Watchmaker of Filigree Street by Natasha Pulley. It was set also 1883, so apparently Victober has continued for me. We have three main characters that were rotating around. The first is Thaniel. It's Nathaniel, but he goes by Thaniel, and he works at the Home Office. He decrypts and is part of the wire transmission of things that are going on. Receives a mysterious watch, and this watch alerted him. All of a sudden an alarm went off, and he was embarrassed because he was in a pub, runs outside to try to figure out how to make it stop, and an explosion happens. And so all of a sudden he's suspicious of why his watch went off at the same time, and then the explosion happened. What's going on? So he goes to see the watchmaker, a man named Mori, Kita Mori, who is from Japan, and he's a very interesting character, and he seems to be clairvoyant. He seems to be able to see things that are going to happen before they do. We also have a third character, who is Grace. And Grace, I think I mentioned last week, was at Oxford, and she was really smart. She's a scientist, and she was trying to run this experiment, and she was sneaking into the BOD to try using the BOD library, using a disguise, and because women were not allowed in on their own. And she also has a watch by this watchmaker, and their stories start to come together. So I like the characters, I like the setting, I liked the mix of historical plus a little fantasy in there. So all of those things should have worked for me, but there were relationships that made no sense, that I didn't see taking the turns that they did. There were aspects that I felt were rushed, and some aspects that took a really, really long time. And so fundamentally, it just felt like a big puzzle, like I was missing something here. So I would love to know from you, if you've read this book, did you feel the same way, or did you understand what was going on, or were you surprised, but not surprised in oh, that's clever, but surprising, like, I don't see how we got here kind of way. And if you've read further of her work, does it get better? Because I see the potentials there, but I don't want to go through the same experience of doubting myself, like, as I'm reading. So that was kind of a bummer. But my next one was great. This is the Death in Brittany, Commissaire Dupain #1. This is by Jean-Luc Bannalec. I really love my mystery series. This is the first of a story about a Commissaire, who had moved from Paris to Brittany, and so he's in this little town. And this is such an atmospheric book, such a lovely little tale about like Brittany and what is it like in Brittany? How does it differ from Paris? He loves his coffee and he loves his croissant. I just wanted to eat that all day long. Wonderful character. It opens with the death of a hotelier, and all of these secrets that come out as he's starting to investigate this murder. There's art plays a very big role because of the Gauguin used to live in this town. So it was literally like the best combination for me. Art, mystery, a little bit of historical references, even though it's set in modern day. I just thought it was fantastic, and I look forward to reading on in the series. Then I had a book I took out from the library, and this is Ex-Libris by Michiko Kakutani. Now, look how gorgeous this little book is. Just really, really cute. The end papers are adorable. This is a lovely little illustrated book. It has 100 plus books to read and reread. So what she's done here is she's taken little ideas of why she thinks these books are worth reading and rereading. I thought this was brilliant in the sense that I've never seen someone encapsulate a book and its importance in culture so quickly. Each book only has a few pages in here. It is very pithy, short, to the point, and for that, being a booktuber who talks endlessly about books, and I always seem to go on forever, this felt like a revelation, and so I thought it was interesting. There's a good selection of books, there's a good selection of authors, diversity. However, it's very US focused, it's very America centric. There's also some groupings of books, so things like democracy, work and vocation, 9/11 and terror. And then there's deep dives into all these different authors like Toni Morrison, Rushdie, Oliver Sacks, Nabokov, Obama, Muhammad Ali, Abe Lincoln. And then someone that I really recommend and am inspired by, so a Berkeleyite, Jaron Lanier, who has written some amazing work about technology and modern day and how technology, he was one of the very few people who helped to think about virtual reality and how to use the internet. And he's an absolute brilliant man, and his writing is fantastic. So I highly recommend his work. So it was great to see it in here. But not a lot of works in translation that aren't already known to be classics. So I think her choice is interesting. These are her 100. But what I liked about this very much was, again, how pithy and to the point she was in contextualizing these books and why it's important and what they're about. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, that's and it would be a great gift too. Okay, so let's talk about what I am reading. I have made my way back to, let me find it, made my way back to Proust. So In Search of Lost Time, Volume 2, In the Shadow of Young Girls in Flower, such a long title. But Leo and I are picking this back up. I'm also doing a buddy read with Charlie at Charles Heathcote. I'll put a link to his channel below. And we are reading Utopia Avenue by David Mitchell. This is my very first David Mitchell, and I'm enjoying it tremendously. It's very straightforward. There's not a lot of like subtext and theme and all that. It's plot, dialogue, and heavy atmosphere. And this is the story of a band that's starting up in London. And this is around like the 60s coming into the 70s. So we've got Pink Floyd, and we've got the Stones, and the Who, and all of these bands are all kind of intermingled in throughout this, and it's really, really fun. The characters are great. It feels very, very authentic. So enjoying that tremendously. Also continuing, making more progress on Memoirs of a Dutiful Daughter by Simone de Beauvoir. Loving it. Just absolutely love it. God, her writing is so exquisite. And of course I'm reading translation because I'm not that good with my French yet, despite 128 days of Duolingo. Thank you, Duolingo, or I should say merci. So that's going exceptionally well. And then I'm reading or listening to an amazing book. This is Anne Perry. This is the first Anne Perry I've ever read, The Cater Street Hangman. This is like the best of a Victorian novel, a domestic novel about these sisters and the turmoil of love. One's married to a man who she's now figured out is a rake. Another one was in love with that one, but has recognized, is now seeing him for who he is, and getting interested in someone else. They're learning things about their father. It's very much about women in society. So in and of itself, it would be an interesting book. It's set in Victorian age, so that on its own would be great. But they're added this element of there is a murderer on Cater Street, and and this murderer is attacking women. At first, it's just the servants, and so it's being put aside as, oh well, they must have been of loose character. Why were they outside the home at a certain time, and these types of things. And one of the daughters recognizes, she's an adult daughter, she recognizes that this isn't someone from the outside. This has to be someone in their inner circle who's doing this. And she's kind of trying to work it out in her head, and she keeps talking with this inspector, Inspector Pitt, and they're recognizing and kind of bouncing ideas off each other and starting a friendship, despite the fact that she should not be engaging in any kind of private conversations with this man. He is of lower status than she is. So it's absolutely fantastic. I can't believe it took me this long to get to this series. This is the Inspector Thomas Pitt series. But enjoying it tremendously. Looking forward to it. I'm about 70% done. I'll be done with it by the end of the day, I'm sure. And then looking forward to starting the next of the Anita Brookner. I'll be starting that today. And then I just have a ton of other mysteries that I've gathered that I'm looking forward to jumping into. So I am going to give a try to A.M. Stewart's Revenge in Rubies. I read this Singapore Sapphire, and I thought it had a little bit too much of modern day sensibility kind of put into it. It was a little heavy-handed in its feminist approach, which shouldn't be a problem, but it did kind of counter a little bit to what I felt was the period. But I loved Singapore at this time. It was so fascinating. So I'm going to give her another go, since that was the first of the series. But if this one feels heavy-handed as well, I'll be out of there for me. I'm excited to start the second of the Jade Dragon Mountain series, which I absolutely adored the first one. This is set in China in the, I think it was the 1600s. 18th century, so 1700s. This was absolutely fantastic, the first one. So this is City of Ink by Elsa Hart. And I also just started, I really didn't consider this starting it right now because I only read a couple pages, but The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. I keep seeing this everywhere, so I grabbed it out of the library. Sounds fantastic. Some people in a retirement community that try to solve crimes. So I'm here for the oldies helping to get justice. And then I need a Christmas mystery. And so I'm going to try this Georgette Hare, Duplicate Death. It looks like wintry. I did try one of her Christmas mysteries last year, and it was too repetitive for me. So I'm hoping that this will be better. So as you can see, plenty to keep me occupied. I am done for work for the rest of the year, delighted beyond measure, and that's about it for me for now. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to, we're still in a global pandemic, and it's actually getting significantly worse. Please maintain safe social distance if you have to go out. Wear your mask, wash your hands frequently, and do not touch your face. Thank you, and look forward to talking to you soon. Bye.